Welcome to the Simplified Dentistry podcast. Join us as we discuss clinical, operational, and financial aspects of your practice, help you enjoy life, and dare to simplify dentistry.
Hello, and welcome back to the Simplified Dentistry podcast. I'm Dr. Mustafa Shah-Khan, and along with my co-hosts, Dr. Richard Offutt and Dr. Murtuza Shah-Khan, we'd like to introduce today's guest, Dr. Puri. Dr. Puri is a graduate of the University of Southern California School of Dentistry and completed an AEGD at the University of Tennessee. Dr. Puri has been involved in community and dental education for the last 2 decades. He is the founder of CDOCS, the premier CEREC educational program, and served as Vice President of Education for Spear Education. Currently, Samir is the Chief Clinical Officer at Imagen Dental Partners. Sam, thank you very much for joining us today. We look forward to chatting a little bit about your journey, kind of all of the contributions that you've made to our profession and kind of where you think things are going.
Guys, thank you so much for the warm welcome. It's super exciting to be here. And look, any contributions that I've made have just been, being part of a great team surrounded by great people. And that's been kind of the success of my life, is just surround yourself with people that are smarter and more successful than you, and you have no choice but to elevate your game. Otherwise, you get left behind.
You sound like somebody who's married.
Yeah. Behind every great man is a great woman. 27 years coming up in November 28th. So,
oh, really? Yeah. Congratulations. One thing we've never really touched on with you is kind of your clinical practice. Obviously, we all start in clinical practice. You had a practice in Southern California. Relate a little bit to us, kind of how that kind of led you towards CDOCS and your journey into education, and kind of did you see kind of where the profession was kind of going, and is that what kind of led you to this?
CEREC has been a huge part of my life. It's basically defined my career. It goes back from even before my practice. I was in my residency, the AEGD residency at the University of Tennessee. And we had the Mid-South meeting where we went with our professor at the time. And there was that first CEREC machine. This was in 1997, I believe.
Red cam?
At that time, I think it was even prior to the red cam. It was the 2D system. So, and he said, I still remember in his Southern accent, he's like, man, if I was in private practice, I'd get me one of these things and start cranking out inlays and onlays all day. I grew up with a computer background. My uncle was a pioneer in the computer industry and did a bunch of stuff. And so for me, I gravitated towards a CEREC machine. Graduated the residency, started my practice, eventually bought one, and it became a huge part of my private practice. And, eventually what that led to was just at that time, the other thing that I was doing was the Townie meeting. So my good friend T-Bone Agarwal out of North Carolina and I started the Townie meeting, and Sirona at the time was one of our sponsors. So I got my CEREC, I became a trainer. And we went down this journey of doing CEREC training that led to having the opportunity to take our training to what at that time was the Scottsdale Center for Dentistry, which is now Spear and CDOCS, which I was a part of for almost 18 years. And, I looked at my wife. I was going back and forth doing lectures from LA in my practice to Scottsdale. And eventually they said, hey, you got to move here because this is not a hobby anymore. Like, we need full-time attention. You can't do this part-time. So my wife and I had a conversation, and I said, I can always start another practice, but I think this is an opportunity where, let's take a chance. I had a very successful practice, tons of family in California, and sold the practice, moved to Arizona, and, yada, yada, yada. Here we are 14 years later, or whatever it is, in Arizona. But my practice led to the education, not by choice, not by a plan. It was just the passion for teaching, which grew and grew and grew and grew and grew. And eventually I decided to make that a full-time career. And then when I sold my practice, I moved to Arizona. I worked in the faculty practice at Spear and CDOCS, and saw a bunch of patients. And just over time, though, just slowly as I went from actual teaching and actual clinical care, I went into more on the management side, until I I retired from CDOCS earlier this year in February of this year, but we had built up 14 CDOCS faculty members, 5 different tracks of curriculum. We went from back when I was doing it to about 60 workshops a year. This past year, CDOCS completed, I want to say, in the 250 workshop range. So grew it quite significantly, and so the practice obviously led to all of that. But for the past few years, it hasn't been my primary focus of doing clinical care.
Sure. So when you started CDOCS, I mean, obviously, when you initially did it, you were still practicing in Southern California, and
Correct.
were you doing it kind of as just a bolt-on with
Correct.
what you were doing and out of your office? And
so I had a partner at the time. We were doing it out of the Patterson branch, doing CEREC training, advanced CEREC training. We hired my cousin in India to build our first website, and
of course you would.
sent out a mailer. we sent out a mailer, got people to sign up for the website, and that first influx of memberships paid for the website, and the company made money ever since. And that was a part-time thing. Just do the practice, do some courses on the weekend. Travel ramped up over time, and it was to a point where for 5-7 years, it was like every Thursday I'm on a flight, every Friday, Saturday I'm lecturing, I'm back home, then do practice. And it wore on me. I mean, look, there's a lot of people out there on the road. It takes away from family. It takes away
Did you
from
have
personal
kids
life.
at that point, or were your
I did.
kids? Okay.
Yeah, I did. They were there. So my 2 daughters are 25 and 22 now. So it was right in the heart of everything kind of blowing up. And there was one time I was home on a Friday. It was a Friday or Saturday, and my younger daughter was about 3 or 4 at the time. She looks at me and she's like, "What are you doing here?" Like, because I was never home.
You may have a problem if that's the case,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And I'll be honest with you guys, I think I'm the only person in the history of dentistry that has basically put myself out of a job by bringing up people below me to help teach, take over my teaching responsibilities, and kind of not do it anymore. Because you guys know this, you'll see a lot of speakers on the road. Every weekend they're somewhere, and their home lives are miserable. I actually like my family. I like my wife. So
Yeah.
it was a means to an end at the time. Don't regret it by any means, but my priorities were more, it was not something I could sustain for indefinitely, 40 years lecturing. I've done day trips from that time from California to New York, 5 in the morning, fly back. I've done an 18-hour turnaround to Sydney, Australia. I've done 2-day trips to Europe. It's insane. I don't wish that on it. I certainly don't wish it on myself. So I stopped doing it and started giving away all of my lectures that people were asking, and help, friends of mine say, "Hey, Rich Rosenblatt, great friend of mine for 20+ years. Yeah, hey, Rich, I got this lecture here. Do you want to take it? Do you want to take it?" And kind of help, support them get their lecturing career going, so I could take a step back. And
yeah, I remember when I first started doing CDOC stuff. First off, I think it was a fantastic thing that you guys did, because you buy this $140,000 piece of equipment. It's sitting over here, and you're like, what in the hell do I do with this thing now? I mean,
Yeah.
and the learning curve is steep, and you show up, and I remember one of the first things you said is, CEREC's a computer. You got to trick the computer, so sometimes you got to make it do things that are not intuitive, but you got to start thinking about it as a computer. And I was like, that's kind of, an obvious thing, but dentists don't think like that. So changing kind of the mindset of how dentists think, I think is one thing that really kind of resonated with me. And then I remember, you talking about the impact on your lifestyle. I remember sitting at the bar at the Princess with Mike. You
Yeah.
just brought him in,
Yeah.
and he was doing a lot of kind of what you were talking about initially, and he
Yeah.
was traveling from Minnesota, and he was doing this, and he was like, I just don't know if I can do this indefinitely and things like that. He said, but somebody had to do the clinical practice side of it to be able to have the cases to display. And I remember thinking, I was like, man, this is a lot of stuff that these guys do and how they manage it is kind of unique.
At a huge personal price, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the behind the scene cost is your personal price, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and people don't, you know, when docs are listening to you lecture, they don't see that.
Yeah.
Right. They don't see that.
If you've ever put together a lecture, you know that one slide takes you, you know, X number of hours or
Forever.
whatever the saying is. And there's a lot of truth to that. Now, granted, you can reuse that content over and over again. So it's that initial effort of putting it in there. You know, I think part of why CDOCS was so successful is that I made it my full-time business, right? There's a lot of educators, and no knock on anyone by any means, but you know, you have your practice, which is your primary source of income, and then you do lecturing on the side. Great way to supplement the income. But you're never going to achieve the level of success I think that Aspire or CDOCS did, because myself, there's a few others. I mean, that became my full-time job. And so we were able to focus on it. So at that time, it was a wild, wild west in CEREC training. I mean, nobody was going to compete with us. We were going to outwork everyone because I'm doing it full time now, which is also why I kind of pulled away from the teaching aspect and not teaching courses after a while, because there was a lot of work to be done behind the scenes in terms of strategizing and, you know, working on the relationships with Patterson and Sirona and eventually Shine, et cetera, et cetera. But you're right, it did take a personal toll, which is why I decided to take the risk selling my very great practice in LA, moving away from my entire family in California and relocating to Scottsdale, saying, let's give this a shot. I mean, again, if this doesn't work out and the Scottsdale Center for Dentistry, Spear Education, CDOCS now fails, well, hell, I got a dental license. I can go practice anywhere. I got marketable skills.
Yeah, it's interesting you say, you know, one of the things I do remember you saying is how it was growing. I felt like you were one of the best marketers in dentistry. I think being able to market your mission was fantastic. And one thing that resonated with me is you guys used to film these 45-second to minute and a half clips that could get used in all kinds of things, in all kinds of endeavors that Dr. Offutt and I have done. We've harped on that. This is what you need. You need 45 seconds to a minute and a half clips to get people engaged in it. And you said, you know, what you challenged everybody on your team is everybody needed to do one a day, you know, film one a day and then be able to have these things in the database. So, you know, what we're doing at Simplify is obviously we're trying to provide educational opportunities and build community with practitioners. And one piece of what we're doing is our Facebook group. And one thing I've challenged both of these guys is, hey, we need to each work on post a day and have some material that can kind of constantly go out there to kind of create the buzz that kind of occurs in that and create the community. But you know, community is not the easiest of things to create, but I think you are one of the best at it. You know, kind of, and you and I talked about when I wrote the dental economics article that's coming out in January about community and how you've influenced community. What's your take on creating community, influencing community in dentistry these days?
Yeah, look, I think you have it right on. So for Simplified Dentistry, you guys are going to have to do hand-to-hand combat for the first initial. Not be afraid to post cases, content, whatever the mission of the group is, right? And at a certain point, you are going to have people that are going to feel more comfortable to participate. It's a little bit easier now than back in the day, because that's our life now. When I started on Dental Town, that was like the only forum around, and then, you know, grew that to our own at CDOCS, et cetera. And now there's a lot of Facebook groups. So people are more used to it now.
Yeah.
But it will take a concerted effort on the founders, you guys, to be active. Somebody has a question, you got to answer it. Somebody, you know, there's something hot in dentistry, you got to post about it. Until that engine just kind of becomes self-perpetuating, it's hard. It's not easy. I think the biggest thing is you have to believe in what you're doing. I taught CEREC for 20 plus years. I used it in my practice for 15 or so years. I truly believed and still believe it is essential for a great practice. We have now, you know, 100 practices at Imagen in about 4 years. We encourage our doctors. We seek out doctors that have the CEREC in their practice because we believe it works. We practice what we preach. And so you have to have that same mission. If you're building a community, what is the source of connection in that community? What is the mission of that community? And you have to believe the mission. You have to live the mission. I believed in CEREC so much, I was willing to sacrifice family home and train other people for it. I was willing to go across the country and across the world. I was willing to sell my practice and move and focus my career on teaching this piece of technology. That was my mission that led to a sense of community. I think if you don't know what your purpose is, and I'm not talking about you guys, obviously, but just in general, it's hard. It's hard to focus on, what is it I'm trying to accomplish? And it's not making money, right? That's the end result of anything. If you are passionate and successful, you're going to make money. So put that aside. That just goes without saying. But you have to believe and you have to be passionate about what it is that you are doing. And it has to be something unique and means something important to you. Why I left after my former company after 18 years and joined my new company. I believe in what we're doing. It's our new mission now.
So obviously, getting back to community is a big deal with what you've done, with what you did at CDOCS, what you did at Spear. I assume from looking at things and talking to you a little bit about Imagen, there's the community component of what you're trying to bring to Imagen. You talked about maybe having a smaller community, but a more engaged community. Can you kind of touch on that for us? Is that a mission of Imagen, or what are you looking at? Yeah.
No, look, our mission is to so group dentistry is here to stay, right? I don't think there's any doubt about that. It's not going anywhere. So our mission here is to just do group dentistry different. We don't have any private equity funding. We don't have institutional funding. We are not building our company that, hey guys, when you join us in 2 to 3 years, we're going to sell the company. Everyone's going to walk away rich. That is not even on our radar. We get approached all the time. We have no interest in doing that because we want to have a long-term vision. Now, that long-term vision, unlike the CEREC community, unlike the CDOCS community, we're not going to have thousands of people. As I mentioned, we have about 100 practices. We're growing 20, 30 practices a year. So we're organically limited by the size of our community. So it's going to be much smaller than what I've done before. But our mission is just to do good dentistry and provide a place for doctors to come and that want to be part of a group that are realizing that is the future. But to have a group that is not interested in just flipping the company, for lack of a better word. So
is that what you would say, Sam, is kind of how y'all are making Imagen different from the other GPOs or DSOs and those folks out in the world?
And I don't, we don't need to get into the details of anything, but our business model is completely different. Anytime we talk to a doctor, other groups will say, well, we're going to give you a certain amount we're going to buy your practice, but in 2 years, when we sell the company, you'll get another chunk. You will never hear that from us because that's not part of our business plan. Now, I'm not saying that at some point, someone's not going to come in and say, hey guys, you have a great business. We'd like to invest. And we take on a strategic investment. I don't know, but that's not our plan. Like, I don't want to go on record and say that's never going to happen because I can't predict the future. But our plan is to provide great support for our doctors. So we have a support center. We have 100 and I don't know the exact number right off the top of my head, 120 some odd employees that are there. Wow. Revenue cycle management, marketing, insurance, billing, HR, et cetera, et cetera. We have centralized functions that support our doctors. Now, do we need 120 employees to support 100 practices? No, but we invest ahead of growth, right? So we want to make sure that our offices are supported, that our offices have what they need. We try to do a good job of that. And that's how we're different. I think there's a lot of groups that'll say, yeah, we got 20 practices, 15 practices, and we're going to get gobbled up by one of the big guys. And so we got 4 people running support. We have 120 because we are investing in the company. Our growth in our practices was higher than most groups last year, and we had tremendous growth. Our practices are actually growing.
Can you comment on what the growth percentages in your practices? Or?
Yeah, our average growth last year was in about the 10% range, 9 to 10% range.
That's great.
So what kind of practices is Imagen looking for?
So like when do you want these two practices in North Carolina?
Yeah, when would you like to buy us? Yeah,
we would love to have you guys as partner and love to be in North Carolina. But as you know, the regulatory environment in North Carolina is very, very challenging. Yeah. What we're looking for is someone with at least a 5-year time horizon, someone who's willing to not say, "Oh, I got a new owner. I'm out of here. I'm going to go fishing." There's a great ad that I saw by Heartland, and not picking on Heartland by any means, but it's just a different business model, right? Some guy holding a fishing pole, and it says, and I'm paraphrasing, want to go fishing, sell your practice to Heartland, right? That's kind of the gist of the ad here. And there are groups that do that. They buy your practice 100%, and then you're off. You have no worries. We partner. So we're going to come in, we're going to optimize your revenue cycle management, we're going to optimize your collections. So we are, as an organization, we're about 99% collections, right? We have a team, that's all they do. And so someone that comes in, they got a $2 million practice and they're at 94%, 95% collection. That extra 4 or 5%, that's meaningful dollars to that practice. So it's incremental changes in the practice that we do. So what are we looking for? We're looking for someone with a long-term horizon. If you want to sell your practice and you want to go fishing or go golfing, we're probably not the right partner for you. We want doctors that are engaged, that are going to be the leaders of their practice. We're going to come in and help streamline some operations on the business end, but you still are the ones making decision on who to hire, who to fire. We're going to assist you in that. We are going to help you become a better clinician. My background is education, so educating and training our clinicians is very important. I've been spending the last 6 months working on that from our end. And so, that's the kind of partners that we're looking for. And we're one of the fastest growing to 100. And this is 100 one at a time, not we bought a group in Orlando that had 15 offices, another group that we merged with in California that had 20 offices. This is one practice at a time, taking the time to meet the doctors, aligning on culture. Culture is, I think, the most important thing in any organization. If you don't have the right culture, you're going to fail. And we're not always successful, but we're pretty darn good and pretty darn aligned with our partner doctors.
Sam, do the doctors in Imagen, do they carry equity forward, or
they do
in their individual practice or in the holding company? How does that work for them?
We do both. So they have our organization is majority owned by our partners. So there's the founders. I'm one of the original investors. That's why I decided to join, 3.5 years into the company. We do a percentage ownership of the practice, and then the doctors get ownership shares in Imagen, the topco entity. So we have a very unique business model in that way. That keeps everybody aligned. So if we're making a change to one practice, the other 99 partners have an ownership stake in that practice. And so everything that we do, you are doing to benefit your own individual practice, which you have a ownership stake in, and you are doing to help the partnership collectively, which you also have an ownership stake in. So as the entire organization grows, everybody benefits that way.
Tell me a little bit about your next hobby. Your MBA that you're doing right now. I mean, what made you do that all of a sudden? Yeah.
Because I'm brain dead and stupid. I'm getting to a point in life where I looked back on my training. My training is entirely clinical, right? Mm-hmm. I've done mostly clinical, but 27 years now, almost starting my 28th year in dentistry, my career has been more business, right? Between, starting CDOCS, growing it, CDOCS and Spear, we did sell to private equity. So I have a lot of experience in that, which is one of the reasons we don't want to kind of do it at Imagen. We want to stay away if at all possible. Sure. And now being chief clinical officer, I'm not seeing patients now, but I'm helping to set the clinical vision of the organization. So it's a lot of management stuff. And frankly, I'm the dumbest business guy out there. My success has been, like I said, just surrounding myself with people smarter than me and contributing where I can. So I was looking to do like a part-time healthcare MBA. They have like, you do a couple of
Sure.
weekends, Harvard, Emory, whatever, fly in, done. So I looked into that. A friend of mine is an orthopedic surgeon at the Mayo Clinic, and he said, dude, I'm doing the ASU MBA. You need to look into that. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to commit 2 years of my life. And, yes, it's 1 week in a month, but there's about 20 hours of work during the week, every week, that what I've seen. And actually, I went down there and I said, what the hell? We're moving into a new house, which is about 10 minutes from campus. And I'm at a point in my life where the kids are gone. Work is steady. And I think at 6 months in, I've kind of got a handle on what my workload is. This is just a challenge for me, I guess, and something that, I always try to plan my life 5 years ahead. Where am I going to be 5 years from now? And there's a very good chance 5 years from now, I might be close. I'm 53. I'm close to retiring, thinking about it. Maybe not the chief clinical officer at Imagen anymore, maybe doing a different role, whatever it is. I'm not going anywhere from Imagen because I'm one of the original owners here or investors, but life is going to be a little bit different. But I also realize that I have a very unique career in dentistry between clinical and, business oriented. If I don't want to stop working, but I want to maybe help out in other ways and use my knowledge, just influence, whatever it is, maybe help out and have that business background where I can do some consulting, some other work, help my organization, obviously, as much as possible. That was the thought behind it. We just finished our first quarter. I'm like, oh, holy cow, this is a little bit more work than I. So, but it's fine. I'm actually enjoying it because I don't care about grades. I've got some 30 and mid-30s people. It's all career executives and high level managers in my MBA. Many of them are aspirational about wanting to become a CEO, wanting to do. I'm like, guys, I'm not looking for anything. I just want to learn, and it's kind of fun going through school where your only goal is to learn.
Yeah, it's interesting. Awesome. You say, yeah, I always think in the back of my head, would our profession be better if we had clinicians who would do things like that and have a little bit more of an MBA background or learn from that versus relying on outside MBAs to come in and administer the profession like is going on? I think the answer is obviously have clinicians who develop the MBA experience versus MBAs coming in. And is that kind of what you think?
Well, look, if I had the short amount of formal business training that I've done in the last couple of months when I first started in 97, when I graduated, I think my career would have been completely different. Like I would have done things totally different, just knowing the few things that I've learned so far. So I don't disagree with you. I think though that's a bigger topic. I think the entire healthcare industry has been taken over.
It really has.
That's a topic for another day. You have students coming out $400,000-$500,000 in debt, and where they go to the big groups. And I think that's kind of one of the other reasons that we are so passionate about what we do at Imagen, that we want to have the younger doctors to have a home where they're not, hey guys, crank it out. Of course, we have production goals. Of course, we have business goals. We're trying to run a business, right? At the end of the day. But what I tell everybody, anytime we look at a new product, a new piece of equipment, a new procedure that we're going to do, it's got to do two things if we're going to implement it at Imagen. First and foremost, it has to improve patient care. You have to be able to provide better patient care. Second is it has to improve your practice. And by improve the practice, meaning, grow the practice in terms of revenue. If it accomplishes those two things, absolutely, let's take a look at it. Let's evaluate it and see if that's something that makes sense to implement in our offices. And then it's up to the individual partners. Our partners have clinical autonomy. We can come out and say, hey guys, we have this great new XYZ widget. We've looked at it internally. We think it does better job at taking care of patients, and it's going to add X revenue. Now, let's say the three of you are partners. You have to say, okay, guys, let's implement it in our office, and our team will help do that. Or guys, I'm not a fan of this for whatever reason. Solea lasers.
Sure.
Yeah.
Just got cornered at DS World by, someone, you got to buy Solea lasers for everyone. Look, maybe, I don't know, but does it do better patient care? Yeah, probably. Is it going to help our revenues? If I can get it for 20 grand, maybe.
Sure, yeah.
I don't
Not
know.
120 grand.
It's a different decision. So again, not to pick on Solea or anything. It's just, but that's an example of something. And if we did decide that, okay, guys, this $120,000 investment is worth it because it does XYZ for patients, it's going to triple your practice. It's still up to the individual doctors to make that decision. They're part owners. They're our partners. So we can suggest, there's certain things that I think that I'll say that we kind of, you don't have a choice. We're going to take over your revenue cycle management because we do it well. Let's just take it off your plates. Like, don't worry about it. But clinical decisions, it's 100% our partners.
Yeah. So when you left Spear and went to Imagen, has handicap gone up or down?
Oh man, I haven't hit a golf ball in 2.5 months.
Come on, man. You live in Scottsdale.
I know. Well, so here's what happened. We're moving into our new house in the next couple of weeks. After this podcast, actually, I'm going to meet my buddy. We're finishing setting up my golf simulator. So that's one thing. So golf balls will be flying very soon. While we were building this house, we had a townhouse on the Phoenician golf course.
Sure. Yeah.
Literally from my front door to the driving range was 40 yards, right across the street. So every day I was on the range, I was hitting golf balls. I got pretty damn good. I got my handicap down in the 9s. I started 5 or 6 years ago. I was about 9. And then summer came. We thought the house was going to be ready. Okay, let's sell the townhouse. Well, timing was off. So we've been homeless for about 2 or 3 months waiting for our house to be done. So we've been staying at my sister-in-law's. Couple that with work at Imagen, just kind of getting into the groove. It's been rough. It's been rough. So I will be starting up again, at least in the simulator every day, practicing as soon as we move in. And then I will start getting out on the golf course again. But between summer, a little bit of travel that we had, just dealing with the house and obviously the heat in Scottsdale.
Sure.
Golf game has gone to crap. I'll be honest with you.
Anytime you come,
it happens.
Anytime you come east, let's play. That'd be fun.
I'd love to do it. I'd love to do it. So, but yeah, look, I think the difference in my career now, early on I'd work, see patients all day. I'd come home, make videos for CDOCS, then get on a plane and fly. It was work. There's a funny story. When we were living in our old house in LA, I had my office and I was making videos. This was about 10 o'clock at night or something like that. My mother-in-law was visiting. She walks by the office and I'm talking to myself. I'm making a video. So she goes up to my wife, says, "Your husband okay?" I mean, why? What's going on? She's like, "I think he's cheating on you. He's talking to someone in the office." He's making videos. So now I have learned to shut it down. Like after we get off the thing here, I got a couple of things to take care of at the office, but I'm going to shut it down this weekend. No work. It's a little invigorating to be able to do that. But when I'm working, it's game on. Like you work hard. Work hard, play hard. That's the thing now.
I think it's a unique thing, just kind of what you've done in general. Dr. Offutt and I ran another project for 15 years, and like you said, it's full bore. You were doing it nights, weekends. My kids actually thought I worked on Friday. And one day they found out that I wasn't working, and they were like, "You don't work on Friday?" And I was like, "No, I've never worked on Friday." And they're like, "What do you do?
Where have you been? Where have you been? I'm 38 years old. I haven't seen you in a while."
I do think, kind of what you're doing, what you did at CDOCS, what we've done in our history and what practitioners do, it's unique because I do think practitioners don't have the skill set to be entrepreneurs, to do other things, and to be business people. I think a lot of them are in that mentality of they had a chemistry degree, they went to dental school, they're clinicians, and that's kind of all they did. And they really have no knowledge of how to manage things. I think what you guys are doing at Imagen, really, I mean, you can take a practice and you can take a good clinician and you can kind of coach them up and provide the support that they need to be very successful, when a lot of these guys just can't do it, and I think that's a great thing. I think what you've done has been fantastic. We look forward to continuing to follow your career. Kind of, for our audience, would you say there's any kind of takeaway messages that you have from our discussion today? And just
couple of things. One, going back to the growth of the practice, Tiger Woods has a swing coach. Greatest golfer in the history of existence has a swing coach. You can always do better. No matter how good you are, you can always do better. Two, ignore the negativity. I think one of the things I hate most about social media, you have these anonymous folks that jump in and just, hey guys, I've got a practice down the road and it does $2 million, and the owner just won the lottery and he's willing to give me the practice for free. Should I take it?
Yeah.
Well, what about the liability and, you might lose some patients, and oh my God, you have to add, like, come on, take a chance. I think one of the greatest lines I ever heard was Howard Friend back in the day said, somewhere out there's some dude driving around with a trunk full of cocaine in his trunk. Take a chance, take a risk. You're not going to get harmed here. People take risks all the time. And I think as dentists, people are afraid to take risks. And so I would encourage people to take risks, smart risks. And then the next thing, plan your life out. Where are you going to be 5 years from now? Don't make decisions that are going to affect you today. Make decisions that are going to affect you 5 years from today, because today is it. Today you cannot change. What's going to happen today is going to happen. But what's going to happen 5 years from now is a direct result of the actions you take today. So my MBA, why am I doing that? I think 5 years from now, it's going to give me an advantage in my life. Why did I move to Scottsdale in 2011? Because I realized that at some point, 5 years later, it was going to give me an opportunity. And it was 5 years later to the day that we ended up selling CDOCS to private equity at that time. Why did I join Imagen today? Because I think 5 years from now, we're going to be at 200-300 practices. And, that's going to be a great opportunity for all the partners and shareholders in our organization. So plan for the future. Don't get discouraged by negativity, and surround yourself with winners. I mean, three of you guys hang out with each other, and you support each other, you elevate each other. I have the same. I only surround myself with people that are successful and that have a positive outlook on life. That doesn't mean you can't have a bad day or anything like that. We all have bad days. We all have bad weeks. Hell, 2020 was a bad year, right?
Yeah. Right.
Or Imagen at CDOCS, CDOCS and Spear, we get roughly 10,000 people a year through our doors for workshops, and the pandemic hits and we get 800. Talk about a bad year, right? And so, but so what? Like, get over it, deal with it. Life is not, just going to happen where everything is just a straight line up. You're going to have challenges. You're going to have, trials and tribulations. It's what you do in those trials and tribulations that make you a better person when you come out of it.
Yeah, well, Sam, we can't thank you enough for taking the time to be with us today. It's been my pleasure personally knowing you, calling you a friend for 15 years.
Long time, my friend. I appreciate the kind words and appreciate the opportunity to chat. I hope somebody enjoyed it. I didn't.
Absolutely.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I spent most of the time just listening to you. I enjoyed it a lot. In fact, Shah-Khan looks over at me and says, you can say something.
Yeah.
And I go, oh my God, I've just enjoyed listening to
Yeah.
the guy. Right? So,
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. And we want
Sam.
to thank all our listeners for joining the Simplified Dentistry podcast today. Please be sure to join our community. Dentistry is a hard profession. We hope that our community can help make our profession simpler. And thank you again for your time, and we look forward to having you on again sometime.
I'm gonna say one last thing before we go. I'm going to log on to Facebook. I'm gonna go to Simplified Dentistry right now, and I'm gonna make a post, and I would encourage everybody to kind of chime in and let's start the conversation.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
We
Sam.
appreciate
Really
you. Sam.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care,
Take
guys.
care. Look forward to beating you on the golf course.
I look forward to getting beaten.
That's right. Thanks again.
Thanks, Sam.
All right.